Someone asked in the comments, how did Sweetwater get as big as they are? And I think I've touched on this before, but I guess I'll go through it again, maybe a little more detail. What in the beginning of selling pro audio gear, when you got into like high end, let's talk about Digit Design. Let's take that one product line. It's expensive to buy into. The dealers had to have a demo system. The dealers had to have their staff trained. You also had to host seminars that usually were once a month or once every 2 months. So it was a big commitment from the dealers to sell Digit Design product. And it was a commitment from the manufacturers to make sure they sold through product. But part of the deal is you got a territory. Like for me, I was in the Philadelphia area, so I wasn't allowed to sell into Ohio. I wasn't allowed to sell down into North Carolina or up into New York. I had to stay within my area, and all the dealers had to do that. They had to stay in their area. The only loophole is if you walked into a dealer and you brought your money or your credit card or whatever and paid for something and picked it up at a dealer, it doesn't matter where you're from because you walked into their store. So that kind of kept everything on a level playing field for all the dealers because everybody stayed in their territories. And it was good for the end user too, because like for me, when I sold the Pro Tool system, if you called me and said, my system is down, I'd run out with my system and lend it to you until I figured out what's going on with yours or give you another hard drive or figure out what's wrong with your system. I wouldn't have you wait a day for FedEx to send something to you if I could do that. So that was good for the end user. Well, the thing about Sweetwater, what was going on with them, they started off with selling sound libraries for Kurzweil keyboards, and they kept on growing. And the one advantage that Sweetwater had over pretty much most of the other dealers is if you sell out of state. So if they sold product out of Indiana to any other state, they didn't have to charge sales tax. Now, they didn't have to collect the sales tax. The end user, whoever got that product, was supposed to pay the sales tax, but no one ever did. So that's a big, big advantage when you're talking about, $10,000 or $20,000 sale, maybe a Pro Tool system. But what happened is that advantage turned into a big deal for them. And what the manufacturers like Avid or Digit Design, whatever you want to call them, they decided, hey, let's open up Sweetwater. And this wasn't long ago that they decided to lift all territory restrictions. So you could sell, if you were a dealer, like for me in Philadelphia, I could sell into New York and I could sell to Florida. So, but, my territory was already established. But what it did is it took people like Sweetwater who never really did the homework to establish the clients, call on clients outside of their territory that they had before, which there was probably hardly anybody in Indiana buying, big Pro Tool systems, and start selling to them. And the advantage was didn't have to charge a sales tax. So how does Sweetwater get as big as they got? Well, they didn't have to collect the sales tax. That's a big advantage for the end user. And guess what? These dealers, like myself and other dealers who put in all the hard work to develop a product line, were slowly losing their clientele because places like Sweetwater and places like Vintage King and places like Guitar Center, because they could do that. They could sell out of state, not have to charge sales tax. Unless they have an office in that state, they don't have to collect the sales tax. So that turned into a big deal. And as the internet got bigger and bigger, and these guys, made their stores bigger online, people just start ordering from them. Eventually, there was laws that came out. I don't know when that happened, but if you did over so much business or your company did over so much business, you had to collect sales tax. And that kind of evened the playing field for some dealers. But the damage was done already. A lot of dealers going out of business or they couldn't keep up. And that's how Sweetwater got as big as they are. And, I said this before, it used to be a a network of pro audio dealers that everybody would help each other out. If you weren't a dealer for something, you can call the other dealers. Hey, can you sell me something at 10 over cost? I'll add another 10% and I'll make a couple, dollars off the deal. And pretty much everybody accommodated each other. Well, when these big dealers got involved, the Sweetwater and the Vintage King and the Guitar Center, that all went out the window. No reciprocating. That all just is gone. So a lot of these pro audio dealers all just disappeared because they just couldn't keep up. And it was just an unfair advantage that Sweetwater and the big box houses got. So I hope that answers your question. It makes me kind of mad because I drove like 6 hours to get to clients' places and set things up and make sure everything was right. And because of that work, sometimes I made some money, but I was counting on the next sale to make more money. And eventually those sales just went out the window because of Sweetwater or even Vintage King, which were supposed to, quote unquote, be my friends. They took sales away from me, which is just wrong. So there you go. Sorry for the ranting, but somebody asked. I figured I'd answer it.